Tuesday, October the 13th, 2020. I'm going to ask Miss Lisa Bohannon if you would to call her roll.
Fred Berry, Anthony Harris,
Here.
Tanya Skillhane,
Here.
Clark McKinney,
Here.
Charles Brown,
Here.
Robert Shackelford.
He's on mute.
Mr. Shackelford,
I am here.
thank you. Mr. President, 5 of the 6 board members are present.
Okay, thank you. And once again, since we're meeting by WebEx, we have a statement of necessity from Miss Elizabeth Bendale, Associate General Counsel.
Morning, everyone. This is a telephonic scheduled meeting of the Board of Funeral Directors and Embalmers. A notice of this October 13th meeting was posted, including the date and time, to the board's website on November 12th, 2019. Additionally, this month's agenda was posted to the website on October 8th, 2020. As there is not a physical quorum present, a statement of necessity will be read into the record and filed with the Tennessee Secretary of State. Pursuant to TCA 8-44-108B2, which states if a physical quorum is not present at the location of a meeting of a governing body, then in order for a quorum of members to participate by electronic or other means of communication, the governing body must make a determination that a necessity exists. Further, TCA 8-44-108A3 defines necessity as a matter to be considered by the governing body at that meeting requires timely action by the body, that physical presence by a quorum of the members is not practical within the period of time requiring action, and that participation by a quorum of the members by electronic or other means of communication is necessary. As stated, this was a previously scheduled meeting that is now being held telephonically, and the purpose of this meeting is to conduct regular business of the board. Voting will be conducted by roll call.
Thank you, Ms. Bendale. At this time, the chair will entertain a motion to adopt our agenda as it is printed.
So moved.
Have a
This is
motion.
Charles.
Have a motion by Mr. Rom
This is Anthony. I'll second.
and a second by Mr. Harris to adopt our agenda. Ms. Bohannon.
Anthony Harris,
Yes.
Tanya Haynes,
Yes.
Clark McKinney,
Yes.
Charles Brown,
Yes.
Robert Shackelford.
Yes.
Okay. Motion carries. I believe I've been informed by Mr. Gribble that our minutes for August and September, those are still not ready, and I think they hope to have us caught up maybe next month. Is that correct, Mr. Gribble?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you. Next item is the legal report of Miss Elizabeth Bendale.
Hello again. So turning to the legal report, item number 1 is a complaint against an establishment. It's complaint 2020-05-7941. In July 2020, a board field representative performed an inspection of the establishment, and during the inspection, the representative discovered that the respondent's establishment license had expired on May 31st, 2020, and was not renewed until July 21st, 2020. During that time, the respondent conducted services for 36 deceased individuals. The respondent responded to the complaint and apologized for the oversight. Additionally, the respondent stated that the renewing of the license had been in the past done by a parent company, and going forward, they will ensure that the license is renewed. Based on the fact that this respondent has no disciplinary history, it's legal's recommendation to do a letter of warning.
Is this in keeping with what we've done in the past?
That is, yeah.
Motion to accept the recommendation. This is Charles.
Have a motion by Mr. Rom to accept council's recommendation.
Second, Mr. Shackelford.
Have a second by Mr. Shackelford. Is there any discussion? All right, Ms. Bohannon, if you'll call her roll.
Anthony Harris,
Yes.
Tanya Haynes,
Yes.
Clark McKinney,
Yes.
Charles Rom,
Yes.
Robert Shackelford,
Yes.
All
motion passed.
The motion carries. Next item.
Items number 2, 3, and 4 go together. The first one is complaint 2020-05-7951 against an establishment. The second, or item number 3 is 2020-05-7961 against the funeral director. And item number 4 is 2020-05-7971 against an embalmer. This was also an inspection performed in July 2020 of the respondent establishment, and during the inspection, the representative discovered that the funeral director's license for the respondent funeral director had expired on June 30th, 2020, and was not reinstated until July 17th, 2020, during which time the respondent funeral director had conducted services for 5 deceased persons. Additionally, the respondent's embalmer's license had expired on June 30th, 2020, and was not reinstated until July 17th, 2020. During which time the respondent embalmer had acted in the capacity of an embalmer by embalming 3 deceased persons. The respondent did respond to the complaint and they apologized for their oversight. The respondent indicated they had been preoccupied with the pandemic and that they will be more diligent in the future not to allow this to happen. It's legal's recommendation to do a letter of warning for all the respondents, the establishment, the director, and the embalmer. I just would like to know going forward, there seems to be pattern of respondents elapsing licenses during this pandemic time.
This is Anthony. I make a motion we accept legal's recommendation, letter of warning.
We have a motion by Mr. Harris to accept council's recommendation.
This is Charles. I'll second.
Have a second by Mr. Rom. Any discussion or questions? Okay, Ms. Bohannon, if you call her roll.
Anthony Harris,
Yes.
Tanya Haynes,
Yes.
Clark McKinney,
Yes.
Charles Rom,
Yes.
Robert Shackelford,
Yes.
Okay, the motion carries. Next item.
Items number 5 and 6 go together. Item number 5 is complaint 2020-05-8431 against an establishment. And item number 6 is 2020-05-8441 against the funeral director. This was also an inspection conducted in July where the inspector discovered that the funeral director's license for the respondent funeral director had expired on June 30th, 2020. And as of the date of the inspection, it had not been renewed. The respondent did respond to the complaint and indicated that their secretary had retired and that they were unaware of the license expiration. The respondent's license has since been renewed, and the respondent indicated that going forward, measures have been taken to ensure that the license will be renewed on time. It's legal's recommendation to do a letter of warning for both the establishment and the funeral director.
This is Charles. So moved.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Rom to accept council's recommendation.
It's Anthony. I'll second.
And a second by Mr. Harris. Any questions or discussion? All right, Ms. Bohannon, if you'll call her roll.
Anthony Harris,
Yes.
Tanya Haynes,
Yes.
Clark McKinney,
Yes.
Charles Rom,
Yes.
Robert Shackelford,
Yes.
All right, the motion carries. Next item.
And unmute. Item number 7 is complaint 2020-05-9171 against an establishment. This was an anonymous complaint alleging professional misconduct by the respondent establishment. Specifically, the complaint alleged that the respondent has unlicensed employees making arrangements for families and indicating to consumers that such individuals are licensed. Additionally, the complaint indicated the respondent has unlicensed embalmers embalming bodies. So earlier in the year, identical issues were made on prior complaints. They were all submitted anonymously and they were all sent for investigation. The most recent investigation was in July of 2020 and no violations were found. Because this is an anonymous complaint and no one's willing to provide any additional information, it's been sent for investigation multiple times. It's legal's recommendation to close this complaint at this time.
Okay, I'm assuming this is sort of a, I guess a sort of a hard thing to prove if you don't have other people, witnesses that are willing to come forward, or if there's, I guess most of them are careful that don't leave any documentation trail behind. But
Correct.
I understand.
Well, this is Robert. I make a motion to accept council's recommendation for closure.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Shackelford to accept council's recommendation,
This is Charles, I'll second.
and a second by Mr. Rom. Any discussion or questions? Okay, Ms. Bohannon, you call our roll.
Anthony Harris,
Yes.
Tanya Haynes,
yes,
Clark McKinney,
Yes.
Charles Rom,
Yes,
Robert Shackelford.
Yes.
Okay, the motion carries. Next item.
Item number 8 is complaint 2020-06-0121 against the funeral director with no disciplinary history. This is a consumer complaint alleging unprofessional conduct by the respondent. Specifically, the consumer stated that their appointment to plan funeral services started late, that an obituary was never placed on the respondent's website, and that the consumer's family was rushed out of the service so that another service could begin. Additionally, the consumer states that they had contacted the respondent in early July regarding a lack of the consumer's sister's obituary on the website, as well as the other concerns the complainant had. And as of the date of the complaint, the consumer had not heard from the respondent. The respondent did respond to the complaint, and they indicated the following: that the consumer's appointment began late due to the family's tardiness. However, it only was a 15-minute delay. That the consumer informed the respondent that they had posted the obituary to the newspaper, and that the consumer was informed that the newspaper and the parent company posted the funeral's home's website, and she had not asked prior to the posting the obituary in the newspaper. Lastly, the respondent stated that due to the COVID restrictions, they could not allow the consumer and family to congregate after the services. It's legal's recommendation to close this complaint.
This is Anthony. I'll make a motion. We accept legal's advice to close.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Harris to accept council's recommendation.
this is Charles, I'll second.
Second by Mr. Rom. Any questions or comments? Okay, Ms. Bohannon.
Robert Shackelford,
Yes.
Charles Rom,
Yes,
Clark McKinney,
Yes.
Tanya Haynes,
yes,
Anthony Harris.
Yes.
All right, the motion carries. Next item, please.
Items number 9 and 10 go together. Item number 9 is complaint 2020-06-2131 against the funeral establishment. And item number 10 is complaint 2020-06-2141 against the funeral director. In August 2020, a board field representative performed an inspection of the respondent establishment. And during that inspection, the representative discovered that the funeral director's license for the respondent funeral director and manager had expired on June 30th, 2020, and was not reinstated until July 30th, 2020. The respondent's representative responded to the complaint and stated that the respondent had not received notice of the license expiration. Additionally, the representative indicated that all services during the unlicensed period were performed by licensed individuals. and the representative did provide documentation to such. It's legal's recommendation to do a letter of warning for both the establishment and the funeral director.
Motion to approve recommendation.
Have a motion by Mr. Rom to accept council's recommendation,
This is Anthony, I'll second.
and a second by Mr. Harris. Any questions? Okay, Mr. Hannah?
Anthony Harris,
Yes.
Tanya Haynes,
yes,
Clark McKinney,
Yes.
Charles Rom,
Yes.
Robert Shackelford,
Yes.
Okay, the motion carries. Next item.
Item number 11 is complaint 2020-06-2161 against the funeral establishment. This was an inspection conducted in August 2020 where the representative discovered that the respondent's establishment license had expired on July 1st, 2020 and was not renewed until July 9th, 2020. During that time, the respondent establishment did not serve any at-need death families. The respondent did respond to the complaint and indicated that the respondent was facing many challenges, including a change of ownership during this time, and that it was a complete oversight. The respondent did apologize. It's legal's recommendation to do a letter of warning.
This is Robert. I move to accept legal's recommendation.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Shackelford to accept council's recommendation.
Second.
Second by Mr. Rom. Any comments, questions?
Yes, I have a question, Mr. President.
Yes, sir.
It stated in the summary that they had a change of ownership during that time. Has that paperwork been filed with the office?
Yes, it has.
Okay, thank you. And another thing, I know seems like we've got a string of these this month. And with the letter of warning, that will go in each one of these files. And I'm assuming they all realize that the next time, if this happens again, that they will probably, can't say for sure, but they might be assessed a civil penalty the next go around.
It's not formal disciplinary action, however, it will be noted, and next time around, if certain violations occur, we will consider that.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Bohannon, you call a roll?
Anthony Harris,
Yes.
Tanya Haynes,
yes,
Clark McKinney,
Yes.
Charles Rom,
Yes.
Robert Shackelford,
Yes.
Okay, the motion carries. Next item.
Item number 12 is complaint 2020-06-2151 against an establishment, and this has similar facts. An inspection was conducted in August 2020, and during that time, it was discovered that the establishment license had expired on July 1st and was not renewed until July 9th. During that time, the respondent establishment did conduct services for 9 deceased persons. The respondent did respond to the complaint and indicated that the respondent was facing many challenges, including a change of ownership, and that going forward, this will not occur. It's legal's recommendation to do a letter of warning for this one as well.
This is Anthony, I'll make a motion we accept legal's recommendation.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Harris to accept council's recommendation.
Second.
This is Robert. I'll second.
A second, multiple seconds, a second by Mr. Shackelford. Any comments or questions? Okay, Ms. Bohannon?
Anthony Harris,
Yes.
Tanya Haynes,
yes,
Clark McKinney,
Yes.
Charles Rom,
Yes.
Robert Shackelford.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. This motion carries. Next item.
Item number 13 and 14 go together. Item number 13 is complaint 2020-06-2171 against an establishment. And item number 14 is complaint 2020-06-2181 against the funeral director. This was also based on an inspection performed in August 2020, where the representative discovered that the funeral director's license had expired on May 31st, 2020, and was not reinstated until June 29th, 2020, during which time the responding establishment continuously employed the expired funeral director, and the expired funeral director served as the establishment manager. The respondent did respond to this complaint, and they apologized for the oversight. The respondent indicated that they had been licensed for over 20 years and they have always renewed on time, and the respondent assured that their oversight will never happen again. Based on this, it's legal's recommendation to do a letter of warning for both the establishment and the funeral director.
Motion to approve.
Have a motion by Mr. Ron to accept council.
Mr. President, I've got a question on that.
Okay.
I see previously they had a letter of warning for the exact same thing.
So during, as you can see, the complaint prior was from 2011. It's under different ownership now.
Okay.
There was personal matters involved, but it's a separate owner and separate individual that license had lapsed.
Thank you. That makes sense. I'll make the second to that motion.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Harris. We have a second by Mr. Harris. Any other questions? Okay, Ms. Bohanna?
Anthony Harris,
Yes.
Tanya Haynes,
Yes.
Parker McKinney,
Yes.
Charles Ron,
Yes.
Robert Shackelford,
Yes.
Okay, that motion carries. Next item.
Item number 15 is complaint 2020-06-2141 against an establishment. This was a consumer complaint alleging unprofessional conduct by the respondent. Specifically, the consumer alleged the following: that in June 2020, the consumer had contacted the respondent to make funeral arrangements for their father, who had a policy with the respondent. The respondent had indicated to the consumer that they did not have any policy in existence. The consumer ultimately pursued arrangements with a different funeral establishment, and the consumer later found two policies that were held with the respondent establishment. The consumer then met with the respondent and showed them the multiple attempts they had made to contact the respondent regarding the policy, as well as provided the respondent with the policy. The consumer stated that the respondent indicated that they would contact them regarding a refund. However, as the date of the complaint, the consumer had not heard from the respondent. The respondent's attorney did respond to the complaint, and they indicated that the respondent was responsive to all phone calls and did their best to locate the contracts for the consumer. And the respondent offered to refund the family for the funeral services and casket, plus earnings on the trust fund, as well as the price paid for merchandise and services trust. However, the respondent declined to pay a refund for the services received from another funeral home. It's legal's recommendation to authorize for a formal hearing and authorize for a civil penalty of $250 via consent order.
So, Ms. Bendel, it's my understanding just from listening and reading that the respondent paid for the merchandise and services. I guess I'm confused, but they declined to pay for the services received from the other funeral home. What services did they pay for then?
So the respondent is willing to pay the price of the policy, which would be the money that's in the trust, whatever interest that had accrued, as well as the money that was paid towards the policy.
Okay,
but
so
they're
it's
not willing to pay the
merchandise.
difference.
Okay, merchandise and services
Correct.
that were in the policy. Okay.
Correct.
I make a motion that we authorize for a formal hearing and a civil penalty of $500.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Rom. I was thinking on that same line with the complaint and then the extensive history that they've got, I think 500 would be in order. Thank you for that. We have a motion by Mr. Rom to increase that civil penalty to $500 and authorization for a hearing.
This is Robert. I'll second.
Okay, we have a second by Mr. Shackelford. Any further questions or discussion? Okay, Ms. Bohanna?
Anthony Harris,
Yes.
Tanya Haynes,
yes,
Clark McKinney,
Yes.
Charles Rom,
Yes.
Robert Shackelford.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. The motion carries. Next item.
Item number 16 is complaint 2020-06-3611 against an establishment. This is a consumer complaint alleging deceitful practices by the respondent establishment. The complainant stated that the respondent establishment committed fraud regarding the death certificate of their father. Specifically, the complainant stated that in 2015, an individual was listed to be the deceased wife on the death certificate, but listed as a fiance in the obituary. However, the deceased was not married at the time of death, and the complainant expressed various concerns regarding the distribution of the deceased estate. The respondent responded to the complaint and indicated that in May 2015, the deceased family came to the respondent establishment to make arrangements, and the respondent stated that an individual made herself out to be the deceased wife, and at the time, none of the family members indicated that the individual was not the wife of the deceased. The respondent indicated that they do not believe they did anything wrong at the time in 2015. It's legal recommendation to close this complaint.
Ms. Bendall, a question for you. It's my understanding that the funeral home is not required to perform an investigation in matters of this nature, that they can rely upon the information that is given to them by an individual, as long as there is not conflicting information that might necessitate further discovery. Is that a correct statement?
That's correct, yes.
Then I will make a motion to accept the council's recommendation for closure.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Shackelford and a second by Mr. Rom to accept council's recommendation. Any questions? All right, Ms. Bohanna?
Anthony Harris,
Yes.
Tanya Haynes,
yes,
Clark McKinney,
Yes.
Charles Rom,
Yes.
Robert Shackelford.
Yes.
Okay, that motion carries. Next item, Ms. Bendale.
Complaint number 17, item number 17 is complaint 2020-03-8981 against an establishment with some disciplinary history. This is a consumer complaint alleging in part that the respondent has been doing business unprofessionally. Specifically, the consumer alleged the following: that in June 2019, the consumer had met with the respondent establishment regarding the planning of her sister's services. The consumer requested to see her sister before cremation, and when she saw her body was in a cardboard box with a bloody quilt draped over it, the consumer states that her sister was in a body bag halfway unzipped with stuff oozing from her mouth and blood on her face. The consumer stated that this experience has left her with PTSD. The consumer also indicated that she ended up using another establishment for her sister's cremation, and that when she informed the respondent of this decision, that the respondent was unprofessional and disrespectful. The consumer lastly stated that there are animals all over the funeral home, including a cat. The respondent did respond to this complaint and indicated the following: that the respondent disputes the allegations of unprofessional conduct. The respondent states that when the decision to transfer the deceased was made, the respondent told the consumer that was okay and refunded the consumer their money. The viewing that was scheduled prior to the cremation was done before embalming or preparation, and that the consumer was informed that the body would be in the same condition as when the deceased had passed away. The respondent states that when the consumer paid for a direct cremation and was prepped on what to expect. The respondent disputes the allegation that there were any animals all over the funeral home and states that there is a cat on premises who acts as a grief support animal, and the respondent indicated that they have a separate facility for animal cremations. This complaint was sent for investigation. In August 2020, a board field investigator had interviewed and obtained documents from the various parties involved in this matter. During this investigation, the only violation that was discovered was that the respondent never provided the consumer with a general price list. The respondent indicated during the investigation that they had never provided the GPL because it was given to the deceased ex-husband at the original planning conference. No additional violations were found. It's legal's recommendation to authorize for formal hearing and authorize for a civil penalty in the amount of $250.
I'm sorry. I don't know if I'm even allowed to say anything, but you have got to be kidding me.
Callaway,
I'm
as
not,
I to you this morning, Ms. Callaway, you cannot speak. These complaints are to be anonymous, and this is the process that all complaints go through. We understand your grief, we understand your concern, but the board does not need to know who the complainant is nor who the respondent is. And we would respectfully ask you to refrain from further speaking.
yes. If you're not on the agenda, you're not permitted to speak. This is for discussion with the board members only.
Well, unfortunately, board members, all we can go by is what the investigation found. Certainly weren't there during the time that the itemized items in the complaint were made. I make a motion, we accept recommendation.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Ron.
This is Anthony. I'll second.
I have a second by Mr. Harris. Ms. Bohannon?
Anthony Harris,
Yes.
Tanya Haynes,
Yes.
Clark McKinney,
Yes.
Charles Rom,
Yes.
Robert Shackelford.
Yes.
Okay, the motion carries. Ms. Bendel, next item.
Item number 18 is complaint 2020-052201 against an establishment. This was an anonymous complaint that was submitted against the respondent establishment, alleging the respondent is aiding and abetting an unlicensed funeral director and embalmer. The respondent did respond to this complaint and indicated that they have no connection to the unlicensed funeral director. The respondent stated that the last body that was connected with the unlicensed funeral director was picked up in June 2020, and documentation was provided to such. It's legal recommendation to close this complaint.
Motion to accept.
I have a motion by Mr. Rom to accept council's recommendation.
This is Anthony. I'll second.
And a second by Mr. Harris. Any questions? All right, Ms. Bohannon?
Anthony Harris,
Yes.
Tanya Haynes,
Yes.
Clark McKinney,
Yes.
Charles Rom,
Yes.
Robert Shackelford.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. The motion carries. Next item.
Item number 19, the final item, is complaint 2020-052231 against an establishment. This is similar allegations. This is an anonymous complaint alleging the respondent establishment is aiding and abetting an unlicensed funeral director. The respondent did respond to the complaint and stated that the funeral director is referring families to the respondent establishment, but is not conducting any funeral services or embalmings. Additionally, the respondent states that the individual is helping with translations during consultations, and they are aware that the individual is not licensed and a licensed funeral director is always present. The respondent did provide documentation. It's legal's recommendation to close this complaint as well.
This is Anthony. I'll make a motion. We accept legal's recommendation.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Harris to accept council's recommendation.
This is Tanya. I'll second.
And a second by Ms. Haynes. Any questions? All right, Ms. Bohanna?
Anthony Harris,
Yes.
Tanya Haynes,
yes,
Clark McKinney,
Yes.
Charles Braun,
Yes.
Robert Shackelford.
Yes.
All right, the motion carries. And thank you, Ms. Mendel.
Thank you all.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is our executive director's report. Mr. Robert Gribble.
Thank you, Mr. President and board members. The first item on our report is a legislative update, and this time we have no legislation proposals to update or discuss or to speak with you about. The licensee report is a report of licenses administratively approved by the executive director pursuant to the board authority for the period of September 4, 2020 through October 9, 2020, and you have a list of those before you that was sent to you there. The closed establishment report, we have no establishments that have reported closing since the last board meeting. Disciplinary action reports, a report of the consent orders that have been administratively accepted or approved by the executive director pursuant to the board authority, and as reported on the August 2020 regulatory board disciplinary action report. And you have a list of those establishments and also the civil penalty of those actions taken there. And their complaint report as of October 9, 2020, we had 20 complaints against either a funeral director and embalmer or apprentice funeral director and apprentice embalmer, and 31 complaints against an establishment, so, which makes a total of 51 open complaints. Mr. President, I'll be glad to answer any questions, but otherwise that concludes my report.
Motion to accept director's report.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Rom to accept the director's report.
This is Robert. I'll second.
And a second by Mr. Shackelford. Ms. Bohannon.
Anthony Harris,
Yes.
Tanya Haynes,
yes,
Clark McKinney,
Yes.
Charles Braun,
Yes.
Robert Shackelford.
Yes.
All right, thank you. The motion carries. Next item is approval for license applications of individuals and establishments. And I've been informed by Mr. Gribble that we have neither appearing before us today. Is there any new business to come before the board?
Mr. McKinney, there is one thing. Daylene Paul and Lauren Thomas with the International Conference Funeral Service Examining Board on the WebEx meeting with us. And we've sent you some information pertaining to the board training session. And if one of those are available, if it's with the permission of you and the board members, we'd like them to speak just a couple of minutes about that training that'll be coming up. Is that okay if they do that?
That's fine with me.
Good morning. This is Daylene with the conference. Just to give you all a quick update, since we are obviously in a state of not being able to meet in person, the conference has been looking for ways to try to continue to support our member boards. And one of the things we've been hearing as Lauren and I've been sitting in on these meetings, like you're having this morning with the different states, is the need for continued board member training, since many folks come onto a board and don't have access to board training. That's a service that the conference has provided in the past. And we're pleased to be able to do that on October 28th and 29th from noon to 2 p.m. Central Time. And the Conference Board of Directors has approved doing that free of charge for any board member or staff person. And so right now we're up to about 40 attendees nationwide. We'll go over a lot of things. We've sort of put it all under the umbrella of regulatory essentials. So we'll go over several things from roles and responsibilities of both the conference, state government, legislatures, the role of the funeral board, statutes and regulations and the applicable laws, and how you have your statutory authority and talk a little bit about criteria for licensure nationwide. We'll also get into a little bit of operations and applications and renewals, how you all handle enforcement, board member immunity, really just several items that, like I said, fall under the umbrella of regulatory essentials. And we're really pleased that it's going to be so well attended. So we would love to have you both days. There's a registration form that I think Mr. Gribble can send to you if he hasn't done that already. But again, it's free of charge, and we'd love to have you all join us. We'd love to have you both days, but if you can only attend one day, there'll be separate topics gone over at each session, so that would be fine as well. If you all have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions from any of the board members? Okay. Any other new business? All right. Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
It's Anthony, so move.
All right. Have a motion to adjourn by Mr. Harris
I'll second.
and a second by Mr. Rom. I was thinking there for a minute, everybody wanted to stay. Okay. Mr. Bohanna, can you call our roll?
Anthony Harris,
Yes.
Tanya Haynes,
Yes.
Clark McKinney,
Yes.
Charles Rom,
Yeah.
Robert Shackelford.
Yes.
Okay. The motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you all for being with us today.
Thank you, everyone.
See ya.
Bye-bye.